I didn't lose my marriage the day my husband was arrested. I lost it the night I realized I had been sleeping next to a man who fed on fear and felt nothing. Not guilt. Not shame. Nothing. And the worst part? I didn't leave immediately. I stayed. I watched. I waited. Because by the time I discovered the truth, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my sister. The first sign wasn't loud. There were no dramatic fights. No lipstick stains. No suspicious calls I could clearly point at and say, this is it. It was quieter than that. It was the silence. The kind that fills a room even when someone is sitting right next to you. Kareem would sit beside me on the couch, scrolling through his phone and somehow feel miles away. Are you okay? I asked him one evening. He didn't look up. Yeah, just tired. That was his answer for everything. Tired. Busy. Later. Not now. Always just enough to shut the door. But never enough to let me in. The night everything cracked open, I woke up for no reason. No noise. No nightmare. Just a feeling. I checked the time. 2:17 a.m. I reached for him. Empty. Cold. That cold hit me harder than it should have. Because it told me one thing instantly. He hadn't just left the bed. He had been gone for a while. I followed the faint light into the living room. And that's when I heard his voice. Low. Sharp. Different. I said, I'll send it, just give me time. I froze. There was something in his tone I had never heard before. Not stress. Not frustration. Control. Cold, controlled irritation. I don't care if she's crying, he snapped. She should have thought about that before sending it. My heart dropped so fast it felt physical. Crying. Sending what? Before I could move, he ended the call. Closed his laptop. Silence. I ran back to the bedroom and slid under the covers just as he walked in. I slowed my breathing. Pretended to be asleep. But inside, something had already woken up. And it wasn't going back to sleep. The next morning he kissed my forehead. Morning, he said softly. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I felt like I didn't know him. That feeling stayed. It followed me into the kitchen. Into the shower. Into my thoughts. Because once doubt enters your mind, it doesn't knock. Settles in. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because something told me, if I asked too early, he would lie. And if he lied, I might believe him. So instead, I started watching. And what I found changed everything. If you heard your partner say something like that in the middle of the night, would you confront them immediately or stay quiet? Is silence in a relationship more dangerous than conflict? At what point does suspicion become a responsibility to act? Please take a second to subscribe. Before all of this, Kareem wasn't a monster to me. He was stable. He was calm in a world that often felt unpredictable. We didn't have a dramatic love story. No whirlwind romance. No chaos. It was steady. Comfortable. Safe. And maybe that's why I trusted him so completely. We met through mutual friends. He wasn't the loudest in the room. Didn't try to impress anyone. But when he spoke, people listened. And when he looked at you, it felt intentional. Like you mattered in that moment. Everyone talks too much. He once told me on our third date. We were sitting outside a small cafe watching people rush past. They reveal everything without realizing it. I laughed. So you don't talk much because you're hiding something? He smiled. No. I just prefer to observe. At the time it sounded intelligent. Now, feels like a warning I ignored. Marriage with Kareem was easy. At least in the beginning. We respected each other's space. We didn't argue over small things. We moved like two people who understood boundaries. But looking back, there's a difference between respecting space and never being fully let in. He worked a lot. Online consulting, he said. Clients in different time zones. Late night calls. Private conversations. At the time it made sense. I was proud of him. You're building something, I told him once. He nodded. For us. But slowly, that us started to feel like just a word. He got more protective of his devices. Not aggressive, just careful. Phone always face down. Laptop always closed when I walked in. Passwords changed more often. First I ignored it. Then I noticed it. Then I couldn't unsee it. Why do you always lock everything? I asked one evening, trying to sound casual. He didn't look up. Work confidentiality. That was it. No explanation. No reassurance. Just a wall. And still, I stayed. Because nothing was wrong enough to leave. Just off. Is privacy in marriage healthy? Or can it become a red flag? Would you question your partner? Or trust them until proven wrong? The change didn't announce itself. It didn't come with a warning or a clear moment I could point to and say, this is where everything started going wrong. It crept in quietly and settled. At first, it showed up in small ways. Kareem stopped sharing details about his day. Not because he was hiding something obvious, but because he simply didn't offer anything anymore. How was work? I asked one evening. Fine, he replied. Just that. No stories. No complaints. No effort to continue the conversation. And when silence followed, he seemed comfortable in it. I wasn't. Then came the distance. Not physical. He was still there, same house, same routines, same presence. But emotionally, it felt like trying to reach someone through glass. You can see them. You can even hear them. But you can't touch them. I started noticing how carefully he managed access to himself. Not just his phone. His time. His attention. His energy. Everything had limits now. Unspoken ones. You've been really unavailable lately, I said one night, choosing my words carefully. He didn't even look up from his screen. I've just been busy. That's not what I mean. Now he glanced at me briefly. Then what do you mean? I hesitated. Because how do you explain a feeling that hasn't fully formed yet? It just feels like you're somewhere else, I said. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. You're reading too much into things. That phrase again. Not reassurance. Not curiosity. Just dismissal. The first real crack came a few days later. And it wasn't even about anything serious. That's the thing about tension. It doesn't explode over big issues. It builds quietly. Then breaks over something small. I tried calling you earlier, I said. You didn't pick up. I was working. For 6 hours straight? His expression hardened slightly. Yes. Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. Not defensive. Not apologetic. Just final. I'm not questioning your work, I added quickly. You just what? He interrupted. His tone wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut through me. I just want to feel like I matter too, I said. There it was. Simple. Honest. Uncomfortable. He stared at me for a moment. Then he shook his head lightly. I don't understand this. Understand what? This constant need for reassurance. I blinked. Reassurance. I repeated. That's what you think this is? What else would it be? He replied calmly. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not dramatically. Not visibly. But deeply. Because for the first time, I realized we weren't having the same conversation. To me, this was about connection. To him, it was inconvenience. I'm not asking for anything unreasonable, I said, my voice quieter now. I didn't say you were. But you're acting like I am. He rubbed his forehead, clearly irritated now. I'm dealing with a lot right now. The last thing I need is unnecessary pressure at home. Unnecessary. That word landed heavier than anything else he had said. So that's what I am now? I asked. Pressure. He didn't answer immediately. And that silence said everything. I nodded slowly, more to myself than to him. Because clarity doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from what people refuse to say. After that, something changed in me. I stopped asking as many questions. Stopped trying to pull him closer. Not because I didn't care, but because I was starting to understand something important. You can't force closeness from someone who is already pulling away. But even then, even with all the distance, the tension, the unanswered questions, I still didn't know the truth. Not yet. I just knew one thing. Something was happening in my marriage. Something I couldn't see. Something I couldn't name. But I could feel it. And whatever it was growing. When someone starts pulling away emotionally, do you fight for the connection? Or step back and observe? Is it better to confront uncertainty early, or wait until you have proof? The night I found everything didn't feel real. It felt like I had stepped into someone else's life. The bathroom door was closed. The shower was running. Steam curled under the door. And his phone was right there. It buzzed once. Just once. But that was enough. I stared at it longer than I should have. Because deep down I already knew something was wrong. And I also knew something else. Once I opened it, there would be no going back. Still, picked it up. The message was short. Desperate. Please. I've borrowed money. I can't keep doing this. My fingers went cold. Not numb. Cold. Like something inside me had frozen instantly. I opened the chat. And just like that, my marriage ended. There were no misunderstandings. No, maybe I'm reading this wrong. No room for interpretation. Just truth. Ugly. Clear. Undeniable. Different women. Different names. Same pattern. He would start gently. Kind. Patient. Interested. He would learn them. Their fears. Their insecurities. Their secrets. Then slowly, he would shift. You can trust me. You're safe with me. I'd never judge you. And they believed him. Of course they did. Because that's what trust looks like. Before it's used against you. Then came the turning point. Photos. Videos. Private moments shared in confidence. And then, the threat. If you don't send it, I'll send this to your family. Your husband deserves to know. Don't make this worse. My chest tightened as I scrolled. Message after message. Panic. Begging. Fear. I swear I'll pay. Please don't ruin me. I have children. I covered my mouth. 'Cause suddenly breathing felt like work. And then, I saw her name. Nadia. First I just stared. Waiting for my brain to correct what my eyes were seeing. It didn't. I opened the chat. Slowly. Like I was afraid it might explode. And there she was. My sister. Trusting him. Laughing with him. Opening up to him. I feel like I can tell you anything, she had written. I dropped onto the bed. My legs couldn't hold me anymore. He had met her before me. Before we got married. Before I even knew he existed. He didn't approach her as himself. He used different names. Different photos. A completely different life. The man my sister trusted didn't exist. And somehow, that made it worse. Because this wasn't a coincidence. This was design. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't accidental. This was planned. By the time I heard the bathroom door open, I had already changed. That night I didn't shout. Didn't throw anything. Didn't cry. I waited. He walked into the room drying his hair. Why are you sitting in the dark? He asked casually. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I saw a stranger. How long have you been doing it? I asked quietly. He paused. What? How long have you been blackmailing women? Silence. Then his eyes shifted slightly. Not fear. Not panic. Calculation. I don't know what you're talking about. I held up his phone. Unlocked. Open. You mean this? I asked. And just like that, the mask slipped. Not completely, but enough. He exhaled slowly, like I had just complicated his day. You went through my phone, he said. That was it. That was his response. I felt something inside me crack. Not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. That's your concern? I whispered. You crossed a line, he replied calmly. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A broken, disbelieving laugh. You are destroying people's lives, I said. And you're talking about lines? He rubbed his face. Clearly irritated now. You don't understand how this works. Then explain it to me. It's not what you think, he said. Then what is it? I pushed. He looked at me directly now. And his voice dropped. It's survival. I stared at him. Survival. I repeated. Yes, he said. Money doesn't just appear. People do what they have to do. And this is what you have to do. I asked. They're not innocent, he replied quickly. They made choices. And that justifies this? They pay, he said flatly. And then they move on. And if they don't? Silence. That silence told me everything. Then came the shift. The moment he realized I wasn't just upset, I was thinking. His tone softened. Look, he said, stepping closer. It didn't start like this. I said nothing. I was introduced to it, he continued. At first, I didn't even want to do it. Then why did you? He hesitated. Because it works. Honest. Cold. Simple. Then he reached for my hand. I'll stop. I froze. I'll end everything, he said. Tonight. My heart betrayed me for a second. I wanted to believe him. You're the only one that matters, he added. There it was. The lie dressed as love. And for a brief moment, I almost accepted it. Almost. Is a confession enough? Or does intention matter more than words? At this point, would you stay or walk away instantly? I didn't respond to his promise. Not fully. Not emotionally. I just nodded. And that was enough for him. Because Kareem didn't need forgiveness. He just needed control back. That night he slept peacefully. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just exposed the darkest part of himself. But I didn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing, and thinking one thing. If he could lie like this so easily, how many times has he done it before? That question stayed with me. And slowly, turned into something else. A decision. I wasn't going to confront him again. Not yet. Because now I understood something clearly. Emotion wouldn't protect anyone. Proof would. So I became quiet. Not weak. Not passive. Strategic. Every night I waited for him to fall asleep. And every night, I unlocked his world. I read everything. Saved everything. Documented everything. Names. Dates. Amounts. Threats. I learned his patterns. How he spoke. How he pressured. How he escalated. He wasn't reckless. He was careful. Calculated. Patient. Which made him more dangerous. And then, I started noticing something else. Some women paid once. And disappeared. Others stayed. Not because they wanted to, but because he didn't let them go. He would come back. Again. And again. And again. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just blackmail. It was controlled. And control doesn't stop on its own. The call came the next morning. Nadia. Her voice didn't sound like hers. I'm tired, she said. 2 words. But they carried something heavy. Something final. My heart started racing. Nadia, talk to me, I said quickly. What's going on? You won't understand, she whispered. Try me. I wanted to scream. But I stayed calm. You don't have to go through anything alone, I said. Silence. Then. He won't stop. Everything inside me froze. She had no idea. No idea that the man destroying her peace was hiding behind a fake name, a fake face, a fake life. No idea that the same man she was begging for mercy was the one I shared a home with. That was the moment. The exact moment I knew. This was no longer about marriage. This was about saving her. I didn't confront Kareem again. Didn't warn him. Didn't argue. I went to the police. And I told them everything. Not as a wife, but as a witness. I handed over the evidence. Every message. Every transaction. Every name. The officer looked at me carefully. Are you sure you want to proceed with this? He asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes. That night, everything ended. They came for him quietly. No drama. No shouting. No warning. Just a knock. Kareem opened the door. And when he saw them, he didn't panic. He looked at me. And smiled. That smile wasn't fear. Wasn't regret. It was something darker. You think this ends with me? He said softly. I didn't respond. But those words stayed. Was this justice? Or did she betray her marriage? Silence returned. But this time, it wasn't the kind you could rest in. It was the kind that echoed. The house felt different after Kareem was gone. Not lighter. Not peaceful. Just empty. His absence didn't erase what he had done. If anything, it made it louder. Nadia survived. But survival isn't the same as healing. She speaks less now. Moves slower. Think longer before trusting even the smallest thing. Sometimes I catch her staring at her phone, like she's expecting it to hurt her again. And the worst part? She still doesn't fully understand how it all happened. I told her the truth. Eventually. Not all at once. Not brutally. But gently in pieces. The day she realized who he really was, she didn't scream. Didn't cry. She just sat there. Quiet. And said something I will never forget. I was talking to a stranger. But I was living next to him the whole time. There's no response to something like that. Because what do you say? When reality itself feels like a betrayal. But just when I thought I had reached the end of everything, life added something else. Something I wasn't prepared for. I had been feeling off for days. Tired. Distant. Disconnected from my own body. First I blamed stress. Trauma. Everything that had just happened. But something didn't sit right. So I went to the hospital. Alone. I remember sitting there, staring at the floor while the doctor flipped through my results. Calm. Detached. Like none of it was real. Then she looked up at me and said, "You're pregnant." The world didn't stop. There was no dramatic moment. No sudden realization. Just silence. Again. I blinked. Once. Twice. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked quietly. "You're pregnant," she repeated gently. I nodded slowly. Not because I understood, but because my body needed to react to something. Pregnant. For a moment my mind went completely blank. Then everything rushed in at once. Kareem. His lies. His crimes. His face the night they took him away. And now? This. I walked out of the hospital in a daze. The world around me was moving like normal. People talking. Cars passing. Life continues. And yet, mine had changed again. Completely. I sat in my car for a long time, just staring ahead. One question repeating in my mind. What do I do now? Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about a child. A child connected to a man I no longer recognized. A man I wasn't even sure I had ever truly known. I didn't cry. Not immediately. Because the truth is, sometimes pain goes so deep, it takes time to reach your emotions. That night I told Nadia. She looked at me stunned. Then her expression softened in a way I didn't expect. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I shook my head. "I don't know." And for the first time since everything happened, I felt something break inside me. Not from betrayal. Not from anger. But from the weight of the future. 'Cause now, I wasn't just walking away from a past. I was stepping into something uncertain. Something permanent. Days passed. Then weeks. I thought about everything. Over and over again. About love. Trust. Choices. About how someone can share a life with you and still live a completely different one in the shadows. And I realized something difficult. Kareem didn't just deceive others. He deceived himself. He convinced himself that what he was doing was normal, necessary, justified. And maybe that's what made him dangerous. Not the actions alone, but the belief behind them. As for me, I'm still learning how to rebuild. Not just my life, but my sense of reality. Because once trust is broken like that, you don't just question people. You question your own judgment, your own instincts, your own memory. But there's one thing I know now. Silence is not always peace. And love, without truth, is just a well-disguised illusion. As I move forward, carrying a child into a world that suddenly feels unfamiliar, I hold on to one question. The same one that hasn't left me since the beginning. How long was I living a lie before I finally chose to see it? If you were in her position, would you keep the pregnancy or walk away completely? Can a child ever be separated from the actions of a parent? Was exposing Kareem the right choice, even with these consequences? Do you think Nadia will ever fully heal from this? And the hardest question, would you have done anything differently? If this story stayed with you, if it made you feel, question, or reflect, then you already understand why stories like this matter. Subscribe and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were her?